everyone, this is your OG, Original Gamer, and this is another Godforge video. We have some juicy leaks for you today, from learning who the final boss will be in the Alpha Cavern experience, to watching Simon chain Hel and Ra's ultimates together. You are not going to want to miss a minute of this. Hold on, because this is going to be quick. So let's optimize.
Hey guys, this is Hel Hades. This is a fateless video. I do these about every 3 months where I take you right the way through the development of Godforge.
All right, so Simon is going to take us through this. We'll give you a quick wrap up. So Simon starts with a little update on the team and how long they've been at building the game. He mentions the investment round is still open, but it's closing this month, closing fast. So if you're someone in the position, an accredited investor, or a company looking to invest, there really isn't a lot of time for you to bat it around. You really got to figure out, get on it, I should say, and get talking with Simon if that's something that you want to be a part of. He mentions that they're on the final runway to launching the game. He talks about looking for the email that went out from right here to everybody. We talked about this yesterday in an email. Check your junk and spam folder. It was in my spam folder, so for sure, definitely look for that. He talks about how they are working on things like the Sanctum screen here. This is just a placeholder, a 2D artist rendering, and they're working on the 3D full actual what it will look like. Stuff like that is what they're working on. Okay, so then he gets into the cavern. He mentions here if you click on this, the cavern will be there when we get into the testing, and that's where we'll go. All of these others will be grayed out, or we won't be able to go into campaign or bosses or any of that. So here we are in the Cavern of Chaos, as you see. We have a different placeholder image here. Icarus has been taken out, and we have, I don't know, gold member or a boss I'm not aware of, maybe. So maybe this is the boss you face in stage 1 instead of who you get. We're not sure, but Icarus is out, and there's a new placeholder in here. All of the rewards look to be staying the same. Simon mentions up in the upper right here, like just small visual tweaks and things. This is the stuff they're working on. This is what they're trying to comb through and improve. Okay, so one of the other things that he shows here that we didn't know about as he goes forward is the number of champions you will have on your team as you go into the cavern. So, you know, typical has been 4. We kind of assumed 4, but as we see here, Simon has 5 spots. So that's an update as well. It looks like we're going to have a 5 champion team to go into the cavern, not a 4 champion team. So that obviously opens up a lot of opportunities based off of our invincible Alpha Cavern team. We now have an additional member added to our fire team of 4. So that can be really powerful. We don't know enough yet to really start crafting too many teams because we don't know enough kits. But as we do, they will become aware. So right here, I just want to mention, you know, Simon mentions like having difficulty with some of the characters that are larger or have like larger elements to them, like whether they're a snake or here Icarus's wings are like way out, like you can't even see Odin's head or Asag's head. I'd like it if maybe his wings stayed like down at his side on his idol breaker and like his idol breaker wasn't flapping his wings. It seems like it kind of creates some issues there. Now, I love when he goes to attack or when they move forward, you'll see like he flies forward. That looks super cool, but something about like these wings here in this idol breaker just seems like maybe they should sit down by his side until he goes out and attacks or he does something. They're a little, at least from that view, they're a little intrusive, I would say. So stuff like that is things in the alpha testing that we will provide to Fateless, and you know, that data, that information will help them to continue to refine this. So we see he's showing some combat with the 5 team members. He's talking about different elements of the team and how things can work and, you know, what you're going to be trying to do and stuff like that. So we see this team going, and then it has Odin puts out one of his skills. Hel, I think, puts her core skill out. Here, later in the video, we'll see Hel's ultimate, and we'll also see Ra's ultimate back to back. So you're going to want to stick around. That's going to be towards the end of the video that Simon shows that. We see lava here from Asag, so that's an interesting thing. As you see the fly forward there, I thought Icarus had maybe the best move forward type animation, where the other ones still seem a little stiff and kind of sliding. That's something they'll work on and they'll continue to refine, and that's what this alpha testing will be designed to do. He also talks, Simon, about the Godforge YouTube is live and that the soundtrack is there. It's really awesome. We talked about it yesterday in a video. He said they'll still be doing videos on the fateless side, where it's more like a dev conversation and that, but they'll be putting the cinematic and dev patch notes on the Godforge YouTube, and then the fateless YouTube will still have all of the usual 2 videos a week that we have become accustomed to. All right. Then, okay, so Cavern is, this closed world for testing and then progressing your teams and your champs and really working on that core game loop and seeing how it works. This is what the Cavern is designed to do. He also mentions that the final boss is Fafnir, and that he's going to be an unlimited damage boss. So giving you a quick, who is Fafnir. From Norse mythology. He's a serpent-like being. He was born when Loki transformed himself, I guess, into a giant serpent. Fafnir is associated with the concept of chaos and disorder. He has massive size, fearsome appearance, and he's the manifestation, basically, of the untamed power of nature. Now, in the mythologies, the god Thor defeats Fafnir with the help of Mjolnir by crushing his skull. Fafnir may have the power to change or transform at will as well. That's kind of built into the lore. Blending in with his surroundings to avoid detection or striking fear into the hearts of those brave enough to cross his path. So that's Fafnir, the final boss. We actually know now. That's a total leak. And then we see Quetzalcoatl here, a quick Q as we've been calling. Another champion we saw in the last week or so, but we see that where is it, right? We'll try to catch it. He's talking about pop-ups and making sure the pop-ups work, and he comes to the Invoker. We had never seen the Invoker class. So here it is. Invokers restore strength to your team and focus exclusively on powering your allies in battle. While Defender's goal is to reduce incoming damage, Invokers will focus on healing and enabling your team to increase their potency and power, and is critical to any assault. So what we're seeing here is that Invokers are sort of our bad A buffers. These are the ones that are putting buffs on the team, healing. Really an interesting piece that we see here that we weren't aware of before. So we get to see Invoker. We had seen some of the other ones, I think Brawler before as well. So we're getting to slowly see what each of the classes are, and it helps us with getting a feel for just which champs are going to be best at what. So here he shows an uncommon Spartan. You see he has real high HP, not a lot else in terms of stats, but high HP, high res. So really interesting that some of these uncommons have, higher than rares and even some epics in terms of stats, but they usually don't have a lot else. They're very single focused. And that's kind of the difference is as we get up into the epics and legendaries, they have a lot more. They're like a Swiss Army knife compared to some of the lower level. But here Simon talks about leveling up and this you autofill, you put the chicken in there and you automatically promote the hero to the next level or next 10 levels. Here we talk about Anubis. He shows leveling him up as well, and how that would work. We then get to see, he talks about, okay, they're working to make sure leveling of champs works and also leveling of gear works, and that all the commodities and resources are accurate and work right. And he says that is working, and it's something that they're continuing to refine. So here as he clicks on this, we see the Helmet of the Brawler. This is a equipment type that we'd never seen before. So a 2-piece set of the Brawler gives you HP plus 15%. So a 6-piece set is a 45% HP bump. So that is another class of equipment we had never seen before. And then he also shows the dragon gear. We'd also not seen the dragon gear, and it looks like a two-piece dragon gear. It's kind of like a dragon skin. It gives you resistance plus 1% each turn with a max of 15 stacks, or I guess maybe 15%. I'm not sure. But if you were to take put 6 of these on, obviously you're going to get 3% on each turn, maybe with a max of 45 stacks. We're not sure. Or maybe the max of 15 stacks stays regardless. So those are 2 new gear sets that we had never seen before. And he shows how to level that gear up and what it should look like. They're working on some of the functionality, making sure it looks proper and works the way it's supposed to. And then he shows us something kind of interesting here when he gets to the next piece. Okay, so he gets to it. He's looking for a chest of or a dragon, another set to pair. So he says, some of these aren't correct. They shouldn't all be maxed out. Only a few of them should, or whichever ones was the leading one. But he shows this screen. Now, what I believe this is, if you see down here, set bonus, this is the dragon image here. So he's got that set bonus. But these are attunements below, the 2 below. And it looks like they line up with these 2. So res plus 45%, that's really interesting because that means that you get 45%, or you get all the res from the 6 pieces of gear, and then you get an extra 45 res if you have this certain attunement, whether it's the gear is on the right kind of champion or a champion from the right kind of faction. We're not exactly sure how these attunements work, but this looks to be attunement 1 and attunement 2. So attunement 1 gives you a bunch of extra res, which is cool because you're already getting 1% per turn from your gear. Then you get another bump. Then the second attunement looks like a block debuff, 30% chance to reflect debuffs or disable. We were calling these control devices, but it looks like they're calling them disables, or things that are disable focus. So that's like your control, stun, and stuff like that. So debuff and disable, 30% chance to block if you have the second level of attunement on this dragon gear. We'd never seen any of the attunements, I don't believe, up to this point. All right. So he says they're working on visual tweaks, a lot of things right now just to make sure that every little detail is right. All the animations and VX are in. He says some champs have obviously gotten more love than others, depending on either how long they've been in the game or their importance. Hel has gotten a lot of love, where some of the other ones that he shows, like Ymir, have just come in and they're only a static T-pose. They don't have all of their animations or idle breaker. So obviously we can see that. And they can only move on so many things at the one time, So you see here, Ymir doesn't do anything yet, but they're continuing to push every day and all the time on this work. So Oda Nobunaga. There is one piece here I want to mention. I'm not a huge aesthetic person. I don't really call out the aesthetic a lot. I think they look great, and I'm not super critical of the aesthetic. There's a lot of great content creators who provide a great perspective on that. It's just probably not my strength. But I will say one thing I notice here, this small sword that he has right here. One, at first I thought it was by the angles, I could not tell that the top here was actually the handle. I thought it was just an empty sheath for the sword he was holding, which obviously doesn't make sense because it's nowhere near the same length or size. So I was like, okay, well, it's not the sheath for this sword, so it must be a secondary weapon that he has. But I really couldn't tell this was a handle at first. And then secondly, the rope is tied around the handle. It's a very, very small thing, but you wouldn't actually be able to pull it out. The rope would need to be around the sheath, to be able to pull the knife out by the handle. Little things like that is what I think that they're saying they're working on step by step by step, just so that it's really completely dialed in. But these idle breakers is what he's showing are really slick. So, I just noticed that. That's a tiny little thing, but these are the kind of pieces of feedback for the alpha experience that we're going to want to provide. It's not a big issue. It's not going to change anything, and he may not even use that, so it might not ever matter. But just little things like that is what he says they're working on right now to really dial everything in and continue to elevate it to a level that, the community expects it to be at. And that's a challenge because you're seeing things in progress, and it's kind of like in real estate, you know, some people walk into a house and they can't see what the house could become. They can only see what it is. And so people definitely suffer from that. And I think it's in everything. Like some people just cannot see the finished product before it is the finished product. So there is risk there. I do grasp that. I get that. But I love that Fateless is still continuing to push things out and get that feedback from that community. So here we see a completely new champion we've never seen in the game before. Simon shows us a shishi dog. If you've ever been to Japan, or in my case, I was in Okinawa, and I have 2 shishi dogs right on my desk here that I got there. This is a really interesting character that is in the Tian faction. Really cool. So shishi dogs were fierce protectors of their master's home. Okay, so on my trip to Okinawa, I learned that there are usually 2 shishi dogs flanking the entrance to most houses. One dog has its mouth open and the other has its mouth shut. Okay, and it's said that the shishi dog with the open mouth is like an on state. It's ready to attack and defend, while the closed mouth shishi dog symbolizes more relaxed, contemplative state or inward energy, kind of like yin and yang and things like that. Others say that the open mouth represents flowing water, while the closed mouth represents earth. So there's a lot of different depictions and symbolisms that come out of this, but shishi dogs are really cool. I'm glad they included them in the game. And so here you see them for the first time. Higher attack, 131 attack, not bad on the attack. Not great on speed or defense or any of the other stats, but it's a rare, you know, but definitely has above average attack. So Shishi is a new one. Kate Sith, the Veiled Prowler. This is another champion we knew about. We were aware it was coming into the game, but we hadn't seen stats or any of this. So here we see that the Kate Sith is a Wisdom Affinity, Invoker class, Chaos Alignment, good speed, decent attack, but is an Invoker. And now we know so much more about that class. Okay, so this is a bad A buffer for your team. And so therefore the speed is important to get that champ back around to those heals, and they got to be tanky enough to stay in the fight. So you can see HP is on this like average. It's average, but I'm sure you're going to want to bump up the HP and the speed to have Kate Sith putting out those buffs and the healing as fast as possible. Okay, so that's Kate Sith. That's a new one as well. And then he shows a few other champions we've seen before, Asag, Minotaur, Voldalak. He talks about all the different beasts that they have in the game. He shows Scotty, who we've seen. She's also an Invoker. So she'll be putting buffs on the team as well. And then we get to a really interesting part of the video where Simon goes into combat with Hel, Ra, and a few others, and you get to see he puts on the cheat code, so they all have their ultimates available at all times, so you can see them all glowing blue. He has Hercules, Hel, Ra, and Odin. So Hel here is going to do her ultimate, and you see her wipe out. There's a little bit of tweaking there. One of them died while still having full health. One of them has no health but is still alive, and then Ra comes through and does the rest of it. So you see, this is the very first, and EuroG called it way back when, chaining of ultimates being the real secret sauce to maximizing your damage. So you see here, this is the first time I think we've ever seen chained ultimates, back-to-back ultimates. And what Simon says here is if the enemy waves had not fallen, obviously if that hadn't killed all of them, there would have possibly been Hercules' ultimate or Odin's ultimate after that. And so you can chain as many because the ultimates allow you to jump in if you have your ultimate available. So you can jump in and go bam, 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 1, 2, 3, 4. And perhaps if that builds your divinity enough back up, then you could almost do that maybe every other wave. If you have the right builds and all your initial divinities and your divinity gains are where they need to be. So this is extremely neat to see. We had never seen back-to-back ultimates being used or the chaining of ultimates. We had talked about it, but we'd never seen it before. So this is a quick one. There's not too much, I don't think, left. Simon just talks about wrapping things up. So we are going to wrap things up as well. So great updates from this video. You can really feel like how close the gameplay is getting to being in the tester's hands, and it's exciting. Thanks for sticking with me all the way through this recap. Through this recap. If you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay in the know. Take care of yourself, and remember, play smarter.